How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Yud Beis, Daf Yud Gimel of Masechta. What? Daf Yud Beis, Daf 12 of Masechta BavaBasra. Friends, there is some interesting stuff on this daf as well. Some Eruvin stuff and some interesting stuff. So that's just like what this parak is about. Eruvin, interesting. Starting off with some Eruvin stuff. Alright, says the Gemara in Daf Yud Aleph Amud Beis. I guess, is that 4 lines from the bottom? Why not? Omer Mar, by the 2 dots. Omer Mar, we said, Oyo Sosum Uvikesh Lefoscho. So if you have a guy who's the back of his house is like in like a different mavoi. Gosh. Eruvin. The back of his house is like the wall of like the mavoi to the right. So you have like 2 mavois, one to the left, one to the right. Each mavoi has like some chutzers that open up into it. Chutzers are like on the right side of the mavoi, and then the back of the house of one of the mavois on the left would be kind of the wall of the mavoi on the right, and one of the guys in the chutzner on the left wants to like blow a hole through his back wall so he can get into the mavoi on the right. So he said, Somer Mar Oyososum. So if he had already a doorway over there in the back of his house, but it was closed in, it was closed up, Uvikesh Lefoscho, and he wants to open up that doorway to get into the mavoi. So like, it's not like he's blowing a new hole. There was already a hole dart in, but it was filled in at one point. Now he just wants to unfill it in. Well, in that case, Ein b'nei mavoi ma'akvin olav. So the people in the mavoi on the right aren't able to prevent him from doing that because there was already dart in a doorway before. Amiravis says, Rav Leishanu elo sheloi paratz es pitzimov. Aval paratz es pitzimov b'nei mavoi ma'akvin olav. Well, that is only if like sort of the infrastructure for the door was intact, right? So a door has like a post on either side and like a perpendicular post on top of it, like from Eruvin, like at Suras HaPesach. So if that remained intact and then they just like filled it in with like stuff, so then you could reopen it. But if when they filled it in with the stuff, they also like dismantled the infrastructure for the door, well then that's considered a seal, and you can't. Then the people in the mavoi on the right could say, hey, that door is history. You can't reopen it. Excuse me, I need to rub my nose. Oh man, why do you think noses are like so nosy? Like, all right. Our parts of Psima b'nei mavoi ma'akvin olav. That's Rava. Omalei Abai, the Rava. So Abai says to Rava, Tani de Mesayelach. There's Taka Abraisa that supports what you're saying. Bayis sosum yesh lo dalad amis. Okay, if you have a house, Rashi says shaylo pesach l'chotzer v'sosmo, that you have a house that had a doorway into the chotzer, but they closed it up. Yesh lo dalad amis. It still has 4 amis in front of the doorway, shaykh to the house. Parts is petzimav ein lo dalad amis. But if they dismantled the dory kind of stuff, so then it no longer retains those dalad amis. Bayis sosum eino mitame kol sevivav. Parts is petzimav mitame kol sevivav. If you have a mace in a house and the house has a door and the door is closed up, so there would be tuma in front of that door, 4 amas in front of that doorway, even though it's filled in, but as long as the infrastructure for the door is there, so there'll be tumas hames, dalid amas in front of the doorway. But if you remove the infrastructure of the door, well then it becomes just like a kever, and a kever is mitami dalid amas all around it, Okay, so if there's a doorway, then it's only in front of the door. But if the door is completely closed up and pitzimov and all, so then it would be matami in all directions, 4 amas. Amar Rabba Bar, I think I read that right. By Sosim and matami kol sviva parts, it's pitzimov matami kol sviva. Amar Rabba Bar Chana Rabbi Yochanan mivoos amifulashis leir acheres. So a mavui, we're like back in Eruvin, we just like went backwards like 4 years. A mavui amifulash, that's like a mavui that's open on both ends. So let's say you have a city, and then there's like this mavui at the end of the city, I guess, and it's open on both ends. I mamish feel like I'm back in Eruvin trying to like explain these things. And then and it's opened on the other side towards like another city. Okay, Ruvain the city and Shimon the city. Okay, so you have Shimon the city, and Shimon the city has a mavui in there that's open on both sides, and on the further side it faces Ruvain the city, and then the people of Ruvain the city. So if you have this mavui in Shimon the city, and it's facing Ruvain the city, and it's open on both ends. And Shimon, the people of Shimon the city, want to close up that mavui. And the problem is that's going to cause problems for the people for the Reuvenites. Reuvenites are people from Ruvain the city. They call themselves Reuvenites, and the people from Shimon the city, they call themselves Shimonites. And so the Shimonites want to close up the mavui. But the Reuvenites, there's a problem, because how are they going to get into the city? You hear the problem. So Bnei also hire ma'akvin alein. So the Reuvenites can say, hey, Shimonites, no, can't do that. Lo mibaya ki lekadarka achrina de ma'akve. So certainly this halacha would be relevant when that is the only way for them to travel into the city. But even if there would be an alternate route, the Reuvenites can still be ma'akev mishum to Rabbi Yehuda Amarab, because of Rabbi Yehuda Amarab the Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amarab meitzer shez kiku bo rabim osur lekalo. That so they would have fields like where they would grow stuff, and in between the fields, meaning in general, right? Meaning in places where they had fields, so. There would be like some space in between the fields, right? So like, Ruvain's field ends here, Shimon's field starts there, and the place between, they would either like dig it out a shtickle or raise it up a shtickle to like distinguish between the fields. And now people, like the public would be able to walk on those in between, on those like patches in between the fields. And the Ruvain and Shimon, they can't do any, like they can't prevent the people from doing that once they have a chazakah. I think Rashi mentions chazaka, right? No. What? Yeah, mishum dechidachaku b'nei. No, not that. No, so. Oh no, did Rashi not say anything about that? Interesting. Wait, where am I? The Mitzvah Sheikh. But the Gemara Pashut says that, right? That mishum Rabbi Yehuda Mitzvah Sheikh ziku barabim. Once they already have a chazaka, right? BavaBasra term, a chazaka. Once they have a chazaka already of being able to use it, so then the owners of the fields can't prevent them from doing so. And the Zel B'zach do the same thing over here. Once already the Reuvenites have a chazaka of being able to use this mavui to get into Shimon the city, so then the Shimonites can't plug up that route. Amar of Anon, Amar Shmuel. Says Rav Anon Amar Shmuel. Mivos am fulashin. Oh man, my back is like itching me. What should I do? Maybe I'll scratch it. Alright, fine. Amar of Anon, says Rav Anon, Amar Shmuel, says the name of Shmuel. Mivos am fulashin l'rshus harabim. If you have a mavui that's open on both sides, and it goes into rishus harabim, uvikshu b'nei mivos the hamid loyin dulasos, and the people of the mavui who live in the mavui, they wanted to install doors so that the people of Rosh Hashanah can't go into their mavui. So again, a similar scenario, so the people of Rosh Hashanah could say, no, you can't put up doors over there. So the assumption was, that this was specifically within 4 amis. The people of the Rosh Hashanah could say, hey, you can't just put a door right there. You have to give us at least 4 amis to be able to, have some, if it's too crowded in Rosh Hashanah, to be able to kind of, have somewhere to go into. That the 4 amis that are right next to Rosh Hashanah are like Rosh Hashanah. But that's not the case. It's actually when we say that the 4 amas of the mavui are considered like Rosh Hashanah, that's regarding tumah. That sofik tumah b'Rosh Hashanah is tahor. So that applies oichet to the first 4 amas of the mavui. But over here, in terms of the people of Rosh Hashanah having access to the mavui, it would even be further in, because sometimes there might be a lot of people in the Rosh Hashanah, maybe like Friday afternoon in Shuk Machne Yehuda, it's absolutely packed. So maybe the people need to spill over even deeper into the mavui, and therefore the people in the mavui cannot put up those doors even further than Dalet Amas into the mavui. So the Mishnah had said that in order for the partners to be able to divide up a field, there would have to be at least 9 kavs for each person. Reuven and Shimon would each have to get 9 kavs. Now, Rabbi Yehuda had said 9 half kavs, so half that amount. V'lo pligi, and Tanakam and Rabbi Yehuda don't argue. Marki asrei, umarki asrei. Each Tana was basically just giving, based on where they lived and what was necessary in order to get a proper yield where they lived. But Bavel, what's the halacha in Bavel? How large would the field have to be in order for them to be able to divide it up? So Rav Yosef says, Rav Yosef, Bei Radu Yoma, large enough for an ox to plow for a full day. Basically, the way that the oxen would be, if you would rent an ox, you would rent it for the day, not per hour, not per rows plowed. You would rent an ox per day. And therefore Rav Yosef is saying that, so the shear that Rav Yosef is giving is, it would have to be a large enough piece of land that you would hire an ox for the whole day, and it would be busy for that day. It would be large enough to keep an ox busy for a day. So now the shaila is, that is kind of a moving target. It's a subjective, there are other factors that can affect whether or not, right, the same piece of land could or could not be large enough for an ox to plow for a whole day. For example, I'm not a farmer, but I guess like the first time an ox plows a field, so like the first time in the season that the field is plowed, so it takes longer because I guess the land is like harder. But I guess at the time, so they would first like plow the field, and then later on they would seed the field. And I guess as part of seeding the field, there would be another round of plowing, I guess. And that round of plowing, would be quicker than the initial round of plowing. So the shaila is, so when Rav Yosef talks about a piece of land large enough to keep an ox busy plowing for a whole day, are we talking about the initial plow? If we're talking about the initial plow, well, that's an amount that for the later plow, it would go much quicker. It wouldn't be enough to keep an ox busy for that later plowing. It would be less than a day's worth because that goes quicker. And if we're talking about the later plowing, which goes quicker, and we're saying that it would keep an ox busy for a whole day, well then, for the first plowing, it wouldn't be quite enough for 2 days. For a rental of 2 days, it would be more than 1 day, but less than 2 days. So Amr Rav Yosef says, Rav Yosef Beiradu Yoma. So my Beiradu Yoma, what does it mean enough to hire an ox for 1 day? I Yoma Zara, Tre Yoma karba lohave. If Rav Yosef is talking about for plowing during during planting, which is sort of a quicker plow, so then enough for an ox to plow for a whole day like that, treyome karba lohave, wouldn't necessarily be enough for 2 days worth of plowing for the earlier plow. Yom karban, if he's talking about the earlier plow, yom desire lohave, then it wouldn't be enough to rent an ox to plow for a whole day for the later plowing. So yom de karba dechar vitani. Well, you could say that it's talking about the earlier plowing when it was harder, but I guess in that place they would plow twice. So they would plow it and then plow again. So we're talking about the earlier plow, which was a slower plow, but the minute was they would plow twice. So a full day's worth of work for a cow in that kind of a place would be the equivalent of, so I guess that would, so what does it say? So I guess in that case, 2 days worth of plowing like that, I think would be the equivalent of 1 day's worth of plowing when it is quicker, like the second plow, the planting plow, and then so you would be able to get, either 2 full days during the first plow or 1 full day during the second plow. So, okay. Alternatively, Yoma Desira Behadure or you could talk about 1 day of the seeding plowing, which is quicker, but it was in like a more mountainous area. So the amount of time that it would take 1 full day of plowing for there would be the equivalent of, I guess, 2 full days of plowing for the in the more difficult arena. Even if they would only plow once around. I think that makes sense. Let me just pause it to make sure. Although Rashi seems to say that in the second one in the mountainous kind of things, he says, "V'yesh ba torach b'shas hazer k'shas hanir." That it would be just as difficult. So you could say that. Sheish torach gadol b'shas hanir v'yoma zara. And that's better. Okay, fine. So actually, no, say it like I said initially. That I think in both cases, the point is that you create a scenario where 1 day of plowing in the planting season would be the equivalent of 2 days of plowing during the plowing season. Okay, that was fun. Davla, if we're talking about like a watering hole or something, and you want to divide that up, Amr of Nachman says of Nachman, Beidalu Yoma, each partner would have to have enough access to water for watering a field for a day. Pardes, if we're talking about a vineyard, and I think that Dennis had pointed out that there is no such thing as a stockyard. Okay. Sometimes you get it right. Sometimes you don't. Omer Abai, Omer Avua Dishmuel. It says Avua Dishmuel that when it comes to a vineyard, Bas Shlosha Kabin, it would be 3 kavs. Tananam Yochi, we also know in the Bryce like this. Omer Lechavero. Somebody says to his friend, Minas Bekerim, Animoche Lecha, I'm selling you a portion of a vineyard. Sumchis, Omer says Sumchis, Lo Yifchos Mikimo Kabin, it should be no less than 3 kavs. Rav Yossi says, Rav Yossi, in Elu, so here's where things get interesting. They definitely get interesting because it sounds interesting. The hard thing is that I feel like you can explain this in different ways. It seems pretty abstract. We're getting to some abstract stuff right now. And I don't know. Yeah. The question is how exactly to understand this stuff. But definitely we're getting into some interesting places. So, Sumchis Amar Yifchos Migimo Kabin, so it says Sumchis that this vineyard should be no less than 3 kavs. Amr Biosi says Biosi ein elu ela divrei nevius. This is prophecy. this is prophecy. Meaning it's not based on anything. This is super interesting, Chevra, because we're getting into some interesting stuff here. Very interesting. Like, it seems, I'm not a prophet. See, the interesting thing is, like, we're going to get into, like, right now, Mamish, like, right now, we're, like, we're going to discuss, like, prophecy versus, like, wisdom. Nevi'im versus Chachamim. I don't know if versus is the right way, meaning, I don't know. Nevius and Chachma. That Chachma is based on knowledge, is based on wisdom, is based on concrete things. Prophecy, you get some spirit from God. It's not based on anything concrete. God tells you something, you relay it, and it is what it is. So Rabbi Yossi is saying, this is nevuos, like it's not, I don't know what it's based on. We're saying that a vineyard needs to be 3 kavs. It says Rabbi Yossi, okay, fine, but I don't know what it's based on. The art school, I don't know, like, and just like nevuah, we don't know what it's based on, but it's obviously correct and valid. So this also, we don't know what it's based on, but it is valid. So meaning, it sounds like, at least according to that, Rabbi Yossi isn't necessarily disagreeing and saying this is Baba Mises. No, he's not. He's saying this is nevius. I don't know what it's based on, but it does seem to be valid. In Bavel, what is the size of a vineyard? Amar Rava, says Rav Bar Kisna, tlos atziosa b'nei tresar gufnei kiechi derofik gaver biyoma. It would be 3 rows of a vineyard, each with 12 vines in it, enough to hoe for a day. Okay, now we are moving on to this next section. Super interesting. I hope I understand it correctly, or at least the way I understand it is one way to understand it. It's kind of abstract. Amr Rav Abdimi Dimin Haifa, says Rav Dimi from Haifa. Where am I? Miyam Shechar Beis HaMikdash, from the time that the first temple was destroyed. Nitla Nevua min HaNeviim v'nitna lachachamim. Prophecy was taken from the prophets and given to the sages. Atu chacham lav novi hu? Is a sage not a prophet? Hachi ka'amar, rather this is what it's saying. Afal pisha nitla min hanevim, even though prophecy was taken from the prophets, min hachachamim lo nitla, it was not taken from the sages, from the chachamim, from the wise people. So the way I understand it is that, meaning, it's interesting, it kind of is like I was saying a minute ago. A prophet, you don't have to be a chacham necessarily to be a prophet. What's a prophet? I think prophet is somebody who God speaks to, and legitimately, obviously, and the prophet relays that to the people. You don't have to be a Talmud Chacham per se. You have to be somebody who is on the level to be a prophet. I don't know what that takes necessarily, but you don't necessarily have to be like like the Gadol Ador, a big posek, because you don't have to be a Talmud Chacham per se. It means that you get the word of God and you carry it on and you pass it on or whatever. But I guess God speaks to you some way. You don't necessarily have to be a Chacham. Now, of course, you could also have a prophet who's also a Talmud Chacham. So what we're saying is that from the time of the end of prophecy, so prophecy kind of, you stopped having people who were only prophets, but not necessarily Talmidei Chachamim, but those who were Talmidei Chachamim and prophets, their prophecy was retained. Like, it wasn't removed from them. Though, as we're going to see in a minute, again, it's very abstract. I'm sure I'm missing about 1 million or more things. But it does seem that, but still, when we talk about the nevuah of the Chachamim, it seems much more sort of scaled down. But anyways, that is what Rav Avdimi Dimin Haifa says. And see that again. Rav Avdimi Dimin Haifa, Yom Shechar Beis HaMikdash, from the day that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, the first Beis HaMikdash was destroyed because there was no nevuah in the second one. Nitla Nevuah min HaNeviim, Nevuah was taken from the prophets, and it was given to the Chacham. Meaning, so it sounds like, so the implication being that until that point, the Chachamim did not have prophecy, only the prophets had prophecy, and after the destruction of the first temple, prophecy was taken from the prophets and given to the Chacham, to which the Gemara asks, Atu Chacham lav naviyu? What, you can't have a prophet who's also a Chacham? So, or a Chacham is also a prophet. So Achikam is what it's saying, Afapisha nitla min hanavim, even though prophecy was taken from those who were only prophets, but not Chachamim, min ha-Chacham lo nitna, it was not removed from those who were both Chachamim and prophets. I hope I understood that correctly. Amar HaMeimer says, HaMeimer v'Chacham odif minavi. It says HaMeimer that a Chacham is greater than a Navi. What does that mean? Shenemar Tzbaz says, v'Navi levav Chachma. Literally, we will bring the heart of wisdom, but v'Navi levav Chachma, that like a prophet has the heart of a Chacham. So we're saying, so we're sort of like, right, mi nisla b'mi, aviyomer ko'in nisla b'gadol. We're saying a prophet has the heart of a Chacham. Kilu, the lower one as the heart of the higher one, right? Kilu, we're comparing a Navi to a Chacham, so the Chacham must be on the higher level. Amar Abai Teda, Abai says, and you should know that the Chacham have prophecy. The Amar Gavra Rabba Milsa, because you can have, one Talmud Chacham, let's say in Eretz Yisrael, say halacha, and you have another Talmud Chacham in Bavel who is unaware of the Talmud Chacham in Eretz Yisrael, and they both say the same thing. How could that be? It must be some kind of level of nevuah that they're prophesying sort of these halachas. Amar Rava says, my kusha, why is that? What's the problem? Why does that prove prophecy? Maybe they're both from the same constellation, and therefore they're like vibing on the same vibes. El Amar Rava rather says, because a great person will say something with Misamra, Mishmei Rabbi Akiva bar Yosef Kavos, and it turns out that Rabbi Akiva had said the same thing. Now, how is a regular, ordinary person supposed to say something as great as Rabbi Akiva, who is definitely on a quantum, in a different quantum orbit, and are quantum orbits a thing? Is that that's like a thing, right? A quantum orbit. It's like you make like a quantum leap from like a regular person orbit to like a Rabbi Akiva orbit, maybe. So to Rabbi Akiva bar Yosef, so how could it be that a regular Talmud Chacham would be mechavein without knowing to and say the same thing as Rabbi Akiva? It must be shtickle nevuah. Rav Ashi says, Rav Ashi, my kusha, why is that necessarily a proof? Dilma leha milsa b'ayim mazali. Maybe with regard to this thing, they're like on the same orbit. Rav Ashi rather says, Rav Ashi Teda Amar Gava Rabba Milsa, that a great person can say halacha misama halacha l'Moshe Misinai. Kavas, it turns out it's halacha l'Moshe Misinai. Okay, so how's anybody? You're not vibing with halacha Moshe Misinai. A rabbi will say, a great rabbi will say a halacha. It turns out it's halacha Moshe Misinai. Wow, how did he know this? Must be a shtickle prophecy. Vidilma kesuma baruba. But maybe he was just like groping around like a blind person in a boat or something. Maybe it was just luck. Maybe it was just happen chance. He said this halacha, it just happens to be halacha Moshe Misinai. Vilav Taimo Yoiv, yeah, but he gave a reason, he gave a rationale for why he came up with this halacha, and the rationale wasn't based on nothing. It was based on rationale, and that rationale was like the halacha l'Moshe Misinai. So how did he kind of come to this conclusion on his own? And it turns out halacha Moshe Misinai must be a shtickle nevuah was guiding him. And Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Yochanan miyom shecharev beis hamikdash, from the day that the temple was destroyed, the first temple was destroyed, nitla nevuah min hanavim, prophecy was taken from the neviim, from the prophets, v'nitla l'shotim v'latinokis, and it was given to fools and babies. The shotim mahi, how do we know that it was given to fools? Kiha demar bar Rav Ashi. It's like the following story with incident with Mar bar Rav Ashi. Now, Rav Ashi was the Rosh Yeshiva Mata Mechasya, and this is his son Mar bar Rav Ashi. Davukoi beristika demechoza. That Mar bar Rav Ashi was in the shuk of Machoza. Shuk Machoza. Shami Lau Shaita. And Mar BavaBasra heard a fool. The Kamar who said, Reish Mesifta de Molich Hashter B'mata Mechasya, that the Rosh Yeshiva, the new Rosh Yeshiva who's going to be Rosh Yeshiva right now, Mata Mechasya, just as a side, that's where his father Rav Ashi was Rosh Yeshiva. But I guess maybe his father passed away, I don't know, but okay. So whoever is going to be the Rosh Yeshiva now, Mata Mechasya, Tavyomi Chosim, he signs his letters that his name is Tavyomi. That's how he signs his letters. Omar, my BavaBasra says, Man Chosim Tavyomi B'Rabbanan. Which rabbi, who that would theoretically be fit to be Rosh Yeshiva, which rabbi signs his name on his letters Tavyomi? Oh no, that would be me. Shmamina Ladidi Kaimeli Shaita. Okay, so clearly it is time for me to be Rosh Yeshiva Mata Mechasya. Come also. So he figured, all right, let me travel from Machoza to Mata Mechasya, and I'll be the Rosh Yeshiva there. Now, in the meantime, the people of in Mata Mechasya, whoever was involved there in the yeshiva, they were thinking to make Rav Achimidifti the Rosh Yeshiva, and they hadn't yet officially appointed him Rosh Yeshiva, but that was kind of the decision. We're going to make Rav Achimidifti the new Rosh Yeshiva or Mata Mechasya. Came in the Shame, but when they heard that Mar BavaBasra is coming to town, Rav Ashi's son, Shadur Zuga de Rabbanan Legabe. So they sent a pair of rabbis to Mar BavaBasra Amluchebe to consult with him and get their blessing to make Rav Achimidifti the Rosh Yeshiva. Now, the thing is that Mar BavaBasra had heard from the Shota in the Shuk in Machoza that Mar BavaBasra was going to be the Rosh Yeshiva. So when these two rabbis came to consult with Mar BavaBasra, Akve, he kept them there. He said, don't go nowhere. Hadur Shadur Zuga de Rabbanan Achrino. So they sent to Mar BavaBasra, right? Well, they weren't sure what happened to the first pair, so they sent the second pair to consult. Akve, Gabe, and he Oichid kept them there. Ademalu Bey Asara, until Mar BavaBasra, wherever he was, whether it was a house or a room or a Beis HaMedrash, whatever it was, there were 10 rabbis there. Kevin Demalu Bey Asara, and once there were 10 rabbis there with him, Posachu Vitano Vidarash, he then started giving a shir, Lefisha Imposim Bechala Pochus Me'asara, because when the Rosh Yeshiva gives a shir, he gives a shir to at least 10 people. The point was that this was when he officially, he basically then took the reins and became Rosh Yeshiva. Right? So once there were 10 people, he gave a shir, basically saying, I am the Rosh Yeshiva now. Okay. Karibei Ravacha Anafshi, and when Ravacha realized what happened, he said, Kol HaMarian lo, lo b'mehera metivin lo, v'chol HaMetivin lo, lo b'mehera marian lo. When something bad happens to somebody, it's going to be bad for a while. It's not going to be good so quickly. And when something good happens to a person, it's going to be good for a while. It's not going to become bad so quickly. Basically, Rav Achimidifti realized, okay, looks like Mar BavaBasra is the Rosh Yeshiva now. It looks like my chance, I missed my chance. Tinokes Mai, what is the prophecy of a Tinokes? Ki ha devas Rav Chizda, havayazva bekanfe de'avua, she was sitting on her father, Rav Chizda's lap. Havayazve kame Rav Rami Bar Chama, and Rav and Rami Bar Chama were together there with Rav Chizda as well. Omar lo, and Rav Chizda says to his daughter, Man minayu boys, which of these two rabbis would you like to marry? Omar le, and she says to her father, Tavayu, I want to marry both of them. Omar Rave, ve'ona Basra, Rave says, I want to be the second one, because he figures if he's in order to have a second, something must have happened to the first. Either he died or they got divorced, whatever it might be. So Rava says, let me go second. And I think that I assume that this is how we know, or maybe there's other places that we know, that both Rabbi Bar Chama and Rava were son-in-laws of Rav Chizda, were married to Rav Chizda's daughter. Okay. Givaldik. Omar Rav Abdimi min Haifa. Okay, says Rav Abdimi min Haifa. Kodem sheyochal adam v'yishte yesh lo shtei levavis. Before a person eats and drinks, he has two hearts. He has right. The article pointed out that it's like when a person says, "I'm of two minds." He's in. What's it called when you can't make up your mind? Indecisive, I guess. But after he eats and after he drinks, then he's decisive. Then he has one heart. Shenemar ish navuv yilaviv. That a person who's hollow, a person who's hungry, who's got an empty stomach, yilaviv, he has two hearts. Uchsiv nevuv luchos mutagminin chalil luchin, and then nevuv means hollow because it says by the luchis nevuv luchos that they were. I think the point is that they were etched out, that the writing, that they were hollow, and that they had the letters etched out into them. So meaning when a person is hungry, so he has two hearts. Oh, is that the power washers? Yep, big time. Big time. Power washers. Power washers. Power washers. Amar Avuna, brother of Yeshua, says Avuna, brother of Yeshua, Arogil biyayin, a person who drinks wine, even if his heart is closed up like a besula yain mefakho, wine will open up his heart. Shenemar v'sirosh yinovev bisulos. That if you have wine, so even if you are what did Rashi say? Lev autumn ki besula ocean navu v'chal. Then it will become, so even if he's closed up like a besula, so it will then become opened and it will open up his heart. Okay? Amar Ravuna, says Ravuna brother of Yeshua, Pshita, alright, it's obvious. Chelek bechor v'chelek poshit yavinon le achad mitzra. Yavam mai. Alright. Now, snap back into like, I wouldn't call this Eruvin necessarily. Dina de bar metzra, shtickle bava mitzia, inheritance, shtickle ksubis. I think inheritance is also going to come up taka here in BavaBasra, I think as well. Anyways, so you have a father, and the father passes away, and he has two sons, Reuven and Shimon. Reuven is the Bechor. So Reuven gets a double portion. So let's say the father had 3 fields. So Reuven gets 2 of them, Shimon gets 1 of them. Now, the 2 fields that we give Reuven would be right next to each other, right? If you have 1 field, right, 1, 2, 3 right next to each other, so don't give Reuven 1 and 3, give him 1 and 2 right next to each other, right? So that, because 1 bigger field is more valuable than 2 smaller fields. It's more, convenient, is more shaykh. Right, as we know from the Dina de Bar Metzra, right? Meaning having a field next to your existing field is beneficial. Okay, so Amar Rav Huna, brother of Yeshua, Pshita, certainly it's obvious, Chelek Bechor v'Chelek Pashut, that when it comes to a Bechor, so the extra portion that he gets for being a Bechor, v'Chelek Pashut, and the regular that portion that he gets for just being one of the sons, so Yavinon Lei, Achad mitzvah, you give them next to each other, sharing a border. Yavam mai, but what about a Yavam, right? When a Yavam inherits his brother, right, as we learned in, I don't know, probably Masechta Yavamis and Masechta Ksubis. When a Yavam inherits it, right, so a Yavam who marries his brother's widow, so he also inherits, he will get the portion, the brother's portion from the inheritance. So now the Yavam gets 2 portions, his own portion and his late brother's portion. So does the same thing apply there? Would those 2 portions be next to each other or not? Do we view them as 2 separate portions, his own portion and his brother's portion, so we don't necessarily have to give them next to each other? Or do we view them, do we say, no, these 2 portions are going to the Yavam and therefore they should be next to each other. So Abai says, it's the Zel Bazach, it's the same thing, that just like the Bechor would have the 2 portions next to each other, or Oichet the Yabam, my time Alkon Bechor Kari Rachmana, because the Pasuk mentions Bechor in the context of Yavam, right? V'hoya Bechor Asher, what does it say? V'hoya Bechor Asher Telet, I think. So because it mentions Bechor, which we learn out different things of Bechorah to the in the context of Yibum, I think like mitzvah b'Bechor, that the oldest one, it goes to the oldest one first, the mitzvah. So therefore, we would treat it like a Bechor, and he would also get 2 fields next to each other. Where am I? So mitzvah. So Abai my time Bechor Kari Rachmana. Rava Amar says Rava Amar Krab v'Haya haBechor Havayasu ki Bechor. Yeah. He's like a Bechor in that he gets the double portion. He gets his brother's portion, so he gets 2 portions, his own and his brother's. But ve'ein chalukasu Bechor. But we don't divide it up like a Bechor in terms of guaranteeing that they'll be next to each other. That we don't necessarily do. Hahu dezovin are amitzra devei nashye. So you have Reuven and Shimon, okay, they're brothers, and now Reuven, or let's even say Reuven. Okay, so Reuven had bought property abutting his father's property. Now his father dies and they're going to inherit the property. So Reuven says, hey look, I already own property, abutting our father's property, so when we divide it up, I'd like to get the land that's adjacent to the property that I own. So again, if Reuven had already purchased land abutting his father's land, so ki kapalgu, when the father dies and now the children are dividing up the property, Omar le, so Reuven says, Pligu li amitzroi, when we divide up the property, I would like to get the property adjacent to the land that I own already. Omar Rabba says, Rabba, it's a valid argument, it's a valid claim. Kofin amidas stom. If the brothers would say, no, we don't want to, what's it called when you acquiesce to a request? Honor this request? Is that what it's called? I feel like there's a better word, but honor, I just said honor. I don't know, we don't want to be amenable to this request. Rabbi says, well, Reb Neil, as Rashi points out, Neil, you want to read the Rashi for us? Neil, what does Rashi say? No, where's the Rashi? Oh, Kigon Ze Kofin. No. Yes. No. Amida Stom. Neil, you want to read the Rashi for us? Amida Stom. It's like 20 lines from the bottom. Zenene v'zelo chaser. Neil, this is your Gemara. It's Neil's Gemara. Zenene v'zelo chaser. So Rabbi says, Zenene v'zelo chaser. No, just give him the field. Who cares? What are you? We're dividing it up. So he wants that part. Give that part to him. So therefore, kofin amidas stom. If they don't want to do it, we say no. You're like the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. If you don't acquiesce, if you don't fagin. Okay. So Ahud is of an Ara Mitzvah Devei Nashe. Again, Reuven had purchased property abutting his father's field. Ki kapalgu, when the father dies and they're dividing up the estate, Amalei, so Reuven says, Pligu li Mitzrayim, I would like to receive a portion, right, the portion that is adjacent to my field that I already own. Rabbi Kagonze Kofan Amidas Tom. So Rabbi says he's it's a valid claim. It's an acceptable, appropriate claim. And if the brothers don't want to give him, so then it's midas stom, because it's zenen v'zelu chaser. Why not? Ma'atzkeflo of Yosef. Yosef says, what do you mean? Well, not so fast. Amrle ache. The brothers can say, Ma'linon le iluya kinichse de Bar Marion, that property is as valuable to us as the property of Bei Marion, of Bar Marion, a wealthy person who had excellent fields. That in our eyes, that field is extremely valuable. How come it's extremely valuable? Well, because these are fields that rely on rain. Right? They didn't have a stream necessarily. They relied on rain. And let's say 1 year, this field, Taka, has better rainfall, and the other fields have less rainfall, meaning the brothers can say, we want to divide up the fields in such a way that all of us get parts of each field, so that in a year where, one field gets more rain than the other field, if this field that Reuven wants gets all the rain and our fields don't, then we're stuck with nothing. So rather, the brothers say, no, we don't want to divide up the fields that way. We want to divide up all the fields equally, so that so that all of us can get basically the same share based on the rainfall. We'll all have equal parts in the fields that get more rain, as well as the fields that get less rain. We don't just want to give a whole field to Reuven. Rav Yosef, and the halacha is taka like Rav Yosef, that they could make that argument. Okay, let me make sure I didn't skip anything. I don't think I did. Trey arisa atre nagre. What if you have two fields and each field has its own stream? So this isn't a field that relies on rainwater. They each have a stream to irrigate the field. Now one of the fields is adjacent to the field that Reuven had already bought, and the other field isn't. So Reuven says, look, I would like, these fields are completely equal. They have their own stream. I would like to get the field adjacent to the field that I already own. So Trey Arisa, Atre Nagre, you have two fields and each one has its own stream. Amar Rabba Kagonze, Kofan Amidas Tom. So Rabba says, of course, allow Reuven to have the field closer to his stream. What would closer to his field that he already owns? Otherwise, Kofan Amidas Tom. Maskeflo Rav Yosef says, Zimnin Dahai Madvil, Pailo Madvil. Whereas Rav Yosef says, wait, not so fast. Some years, one of the streams might be dried up, and the other stream isn't, in which case you would be able to draw water from only one of them and not the other one, and therefore one of the fields would be good, the other field would not be good, and therefore the brothers can say that we don't just want to give a field to Reuven. Let's say the two brothers. So I don't want to just give that whole field to Reuven, because what if one year that stream is full, but my stream is not? Then I'm going to lose out. I want to divide up so we each get half of each field. So again, the halacha is like Rav Yosef, it's a valid argument. Tarte achad nagra. Now what if you have both fields that are using the same stream? Okay, so in this case, it's going to be the same halacha for both, right? Meaning, if the stream is dried up, it's dried up for both. If the stream is givaldi, it's givaldi for both. So in this case, you may as well, right? Meaning, so you have basically Reuven owns a property, to the easternmost property. And then there are two other properties. There's one in the middle and there's a western field. And there's a stream between the one in the middle and the one on the west. So in this case, may as well give Reuven the one in the middle that would adjoin the one that he owns, let's say, all the way to the right. Let's say the east one is the right and the west one is the left, right? So you have a field to the right, you have a field to the middle, you have a field to the left. Reuven already owns the field to the right. And then between the field in the middle and the field to the left, there's a stream. So we say, look, if the stream dries up, it dries up for both the middle one and the one on the left. If there's a lot of water, there's a lot of water for both of them as well. May as well give the middle one to Reuven so that it can adjoin the one that he already owns to the right. So, Tarte achad nagra Rav Yosef kigon zeh kofna midas tom. So Rav Yosef says, okay, even though I've been arguing for the past two cases how that you can make an argument that we want to divide up both fields equally. In this case, they're both on the same stream. There's no reason not to give the middle field to Reuven and Kofan Amidas Tom. Maskeflo Abaye Asakasha Matzu Omar, but can't Shimon say, I want the middle field, and the reason why I'm entitled to the middle field is Ba'ino de Afish Arise, because my field is more secure if I have the middle one. Because if Reuven has the field to the right and the field to the left, then he's going to have more sharecroppers for it, which having more people around basically creates more security for my field. Whereas if Reuven has the field to the right and the field in the middle, well then he's not, because everything's connected, he won't need as many workers because it's all just one big field. If two separate fields, you need more workers than you would for one larger field. So Abaye says that Shimon should be able to argue, wait, if I get the field on the left and allow Reuven to have the field on the right and in the middle, he's going to have less workers, which makes my field less secure. So therefore, Shimon says, I want to have the middle field so that Reuven has two separate fields, and therefore he's going to require more workers, and then it'll bring more security to the area. Right? So Amatzi Omar Ba'ina da Apish Arise. Rav Yosef Apusha Lab Milsai. Whereas the Gemara says that Allah is like Rav Yosef, that no, Kofin al Midas Tom. Shimon's arguments about wanting more security and therefore messing up Reuven's ability to have his fields next to each other so that there could be more people around. That's not relevant over here. Chad Gisa Nagara v'chad Gisa Naira Palgin lo B'karne Dizol. Oh my gosh, okay, 1 second, I have to pause the video. Alright, I was about to run out of room there. Okay, this is an interesting one. So if you have a field, oy vavoy, Chad gisa nagra v'chad gisa naira. So a nagra is a A nagra was a what's it called again? A like channel or something? Wait, let me look up the word nagra quickly. A nagra is a canal. Oy vavoy. So you have a canal on, let's say, the north, even though, yeah, interesting. Rashi gives a different, interesting way. In the art school, they're working with the canal on the north and the river to the right. And in Rashi, there's like a diagram in Rashi, he's talking about he's talking about, I guess, yeah, he's also talking about the north and the east, just that his north is to the west for some reason. Why is Rashi's north to the west? Okay, whatever. Let's just talk about, to the north and to the east. Oy vavoy. So let's say you have the field, and it's there's like a canal to the north and a river to the east. And so the river is like gets more irrigation than the canal. Now to the north there's the canal, to the east there's the river, and to the west and to the south there's nothing. So if you divide it in half, if you just divide the field in half, well then that's not going to be fair. Because let's say you divide it half like north-south, okay? So basically, Shimon gets the part to the west and Reuven gets the part to the east. So Reuven, who gets the part to the east, is going to have the river on the entire river to himself. And in the north, half of his field is going to have the canal, whereas Shimon only has half of the canal to the north and nothing to the west, nothing to the south, right? So the way that you would divide it, and same thing if you do kind of like east-west, right? So let's say Reuven gets the north and Shimon gets the south. So Reuven's going to have the whole canal and half of the river, and Shimon's only going to have half of the river and nothing else. So the way to divide it up is you like divide it up into, if you have even like a regular Gemara in front of you, you see how they divide it up like a pizza pie, basically cut into 8 slices, and like that everybody's getting like different parts. It's Erevin. You got to look at a diagram. What do you want me to tell you? But if you divide it up that way, then like they each get like equal parts of everything. Okie dokie. That was Daf Yud Beis of Masechta BavaBasra. Another, combination, mixture of Eruvin and Agadata. Some very interesting Agadatas at that. Nevius and destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. All sorts of interesting stuff. Peace out.